The Witch of the Woods. Deep within the heart of an ancient, twisted forest where sunlight struggled to penetrate the dense canopy, there stood a house. It was not a house built by mortal hands, but a structure that seemed to grow from the very roots of the trees themselves. The walls were woven from gnarled branches and thorny vines, forming a labyrinthine facade that loomed over intruders like a living, breathing entity. Moss and ivy crawled over every inch of the house, obscuring windows that gleamed with an unsettling, ethereal light. Shadows danced behind those windows, shadows that moved with a life of their own, flickering and contorting in ways that defied the laws of nature. No bird sang near this house, and the air around it was thick with an unnatural stillness. Even the wind seemed hesitant to touch its crumbling walls, as if afraid of awakening the dark magic that slumbered within. Those who dared to approach spoke of a sense of dread that washed over them like a wave of icy water. They told of whispers that echoed through the trees, whispers that spoke of secrets long buried and forbidden knowledge that should never be sought. Those who ventured close enough at night told tales of strange, haunting melodies that drifted through the air, luring the unwary deeper into the forest. Lights flickered within the house, casting eerie, dancing shadows that seemed to mock and menace any who dared to gaze upon them. But the most chilling stories were those of the lost souls who stumbled upon the witch's house and were never seen again. They spoke of disappearances that left no trace, as if the forest itself had swallowed them whole, leaving behind only a lingering sense of unease and an echo of their final, desperate cries. Yet, despite the warnings and the fear that gripped their hearts, there were those who sought out the witch's house. Desperate souls driven by whispers of power and promises of immortality crept through the shadows, drawn by a primal curiosity that overpowered their rational minds. They would find themselves standing before the doorway, a doorway that seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy. The door itself was a masterpiece of darkness and decay, adorned with symbols that seemed to writhe and twist like serpents trapped in an eternal struggle. Those who dared to knock found themselves greeted by a silence so profound it felt as though the very forest held its breath. And then, with a creak that echoed like a mournful cry, the door would swing open of its own accord, revealing a corridor that stretched into darkness like the throat of some vast, insatiable beast. Inside, the air was heavy with the scent of ancient herbs and rot, a smell that clung to the skin like a shroud of death. The walls pulsed with a sickly, greenish light, casting distorted shadows that writhed and contorted like tortured souls trapped in eternal torment. And at the heart of it all, in a chamber that seemed to exist beyond the boundaries of time and space, sat Agatha. Her eyes burned with an unholy fire, and her voice was a whisper that wormed its way into the minds of those who dared to meet her gaze. She offered them bargains, promises of power and knowledge that shimmered like fool's gold in the darkness, but those who accepted found themselves ensnared in a web of deceit and betrayal, their souls bound to the witch and her house for all eternity. For Agatha was not merely a witch of the woods, she was a creature born of nightmares and ancient curses, a being who feasted on the fears and desires of mortals. And her house, with its twisted branches and whispered secrets, was a gateway to a realm where reality melted and nightmares became horrific truths. So if you ever find yourself wandering through a forest shrouded in shadows and silence, beware the witch's house and the darkness that lurks within, for once you enter, there is no escape from the horrors that await in the heart of the haunted woods.